there will be a very clear realization that, boss, it's a for-profit
There
venture.
is a market.
You are making money when you set up these infrastructures.
Sports is one of the 8 things that you can invest in as part of CSR.
बेटा MBA किया है, काम तो तेरे को वर्ड पे ही करना है. Word, Excel, or like let's say Microsoft family.
I know for a fact that CSR law states that you cannot get any marketing impetus out of it. The goodwill is so strong that that message will spread, irrespective of whether you can actively market it or not.
People have this, I don't know, misunderstanding or people. So whenever something starts becoming popular, there are opportunists who come in and start taking advantage.
You will have the highs, you will have the celebrity moments when you work in elite sports or when you become part of world scale events. But the true gratification that you felt when you were playing will, the closest you can ever come to that in sports profession is when you're delivering things at the grassroots level. Where are my internship opportunities going to come from? Where are my job opportunities going to come from? What are those ecosystem partnerships that you've developed as an institute that I can tap into? And hey, Appachu. So we're here, right?
Hi, Sumit.
Hi. So we're here right now for the second session of the Playmakers Arena. This is me and Appachu, who've known each other for a really long time, talking about grassroots sports in general. What does grassroots sport entail? How we've seen through our sporting journeys, through our sporting careers, the landscape change from where it was and where it has come to at this point in time. And then, of course, the main part of this session is going to be talking about what careers in grassroots sports look like. What are the different avenues you could explore? So we'll tap into our understanding of the ecosystem and try to bring out different opportunities that exist within the grassroots sports ecosystem in India and globally as well, because with the advent of technology, I think we're no more restricted to an Indian playing field, but we can actually look at global opportunities within the grassroots ecosystem. So that's what we're here to talk about. To start us off, let's just do a little bit of introduction. Appachu, if you can start off, give us a little bit of a sneak peek into what you've done, in your professional career so far.
Sure, Sumit. So first of all, I think what you shared is very much captures what we are going to cover today and very aptly captured. So I've been working in the sports industry for about 7 years now. I'm currently head sports development at Spotify Asia. We are a grassroots sports organization that's working in sports education, sports management, and sports advisory. My journey in sports started with working for a NGO called Hockey Village India, a sports NGO based in Rajasthan. Spent some time with them. Post which I worked for another company called Sports Consult, another grassroots company. Spent 2 years with them, learned the ropes of what grassroots is. Post that is when we worked together when I was with the government of Odisha. So that was 2.5 years of working with a bird's eye view of thinking at scale and at the same time thinking through every initiative, every program, every scheme.
Right.
Working across grassroots, across high performance centers, events, infrastructure development, sponsorships, legal, like the roles that we played in that stint were myriad. And that opportunity was immense, getting a chance to work with you and with the government of Odisha there. Post which I spent a little more than a year with the sports advisory team at PwC. Again, got a chance in a very short time to work on many projects, both in the government sector and the private sector. And now here I am at Spotify.
I think you've traversed across a lot of different layers that exist within the sporting ecosystem over 7 years, which some people may say is not a really long time because, we've known people to be at one company for 7 years, right? So, we're excited to hear about all the different flavors you'll be able to add to this conversation over the course of the next 40 odd minutes. My introduction. So currently I'm working with JSW Sports as head of special projects. The special projects initiatives that I look into, again, go across a lot of different sectors. Some are related to elite sport performance. Some are related to infrastructure. Some are related to grassroots sports and school sports. Some are related to, working with federations. So it's a lot of different projects that I essentially look after in my role currently as JSW. If you have to talk about my sporting experience, I think roughly it'll be around the same as yours. The first thing I did was I, along with a friend, used to look after a football training program. So we used to run soccer schools in Bombay, where I learned the ropes on essentially one very, very key aspect of grassroots, which is basically having a bunch of coaches come together and deliver programs to a lot of kids across varying age categories, and then also having a professional team at the end of it competing competitively across the Mumbai sporting ecosystem, football sporting ecosystem that exists. Post that, I was at Oxford for a bit doing my MBA there. And there I did a consulting project for Man City. So the City Football Group. That was a pure play consulting project wherein the project was called Stadium 365. The idea was for the group to come up with recommendations on how to make better utilization of the stadium asset that they'd essentially leased out from the Manchester City Council, the City Council. The Manchester Council, post the Commonwealth Games that were held there. Post that, I guess my first foray into mainstream sports profession was with the government of Odisha, where I was deployed as an officer on special duty for the Department of Sports and Youth Services, which is where we had an overlap. I did about vaguely 4 years, out of which we worked there together for about 2.5 years. That again, I think we can delve into the different flavors of that role over the course of our conversation. Post that, I was involved in the sports tech space or the RMG space. I prefer to create that distinction between sports tech and RMG. Some don't, but yeah, I was part of the strategy team at MPL, wherein looked a little bit at the India business, but primarily the Indonesia business before it shut down, and then the US business was where I was primarily focused as part of the strategy team. And then currently, like I said, I'm plying my trade with JSW Sports. So that's a little bit on my background, and hopefully this experience will arm me with answering some of the questions that we've received as part of this particular session that we want to get answered. So okay,
Yeah.
delving straight in, I think the biggest thing that needs answering is truly understanding what grassroots sports means, right? Because it has happened to me in a lot of conversations wherein everybody thinks of grassroots as this pyramid and grassroots being as the bottom layer of that pyramid, right? That's the quintessential definition everyone goes by. Appachu, why don't you take a stab at letting us know what your understanding of grassroots is?
So this general understanding that people have of grassroots is right to a large extent. Like my take on it is it refers to programs, activities, initiatives that aim at promoting sports at the community level. What you're trying to do is trying to encourage participation, nurture talent, promote sports at the local and non-professional level. Where probably people limit their understanding to is, I guess they believe that grassroots means children.
Yeah.
And hence I said promoting sports at the community level. So anybody who's not a professional athlete is part of the amateur space, and so whether it's an adult like you and me who spend our evenings playing, booking a turf somewhere and playing with our friends,
Exactly.
or children participating in inter-school competitions, that it entirely, because since we are part of the same society and same community, what we do falls under grassroots sports. That's my take on it.
No, I absolutely agree. It's so funny. The first time I came across this question was when we started a soccer dads program under Grassroots. And everybody was like, how are you classifying dads into Grassroots? And I had to go through the exact same explanation to help them realize that, listen, everything that classifies itself into a community-based activity pretty much should be called as Grassroots, which by default expands the opportunities of pursuing careers or self-employment or entrepreneurship in the grassroots space, right? You've just increased the expanse of what really classifies itself as grassroots. So Appa, since you've already spoken about what is grassroots, let's talk a little bit about why is grassroots important, right? And for me, there are two aspects to it, right? Or rather three aspects to it. The first aspect of grassroots is it acts as the base of the pyramid towards elite sport. So at some point in time, if you want to become a great footballing nation or you want to become a great nation producing a lot of Olympic medals, effort needs to be put in the typical definition of grassroots that we all have related to for a while now, which is creating a very, very strong base of the pyramid, having strong activity there, and making sure
Correct.
that you create a pool which then the more higher sections of the pyramid can tap into in order to nurture and then take towards elite sports, right? So that's one aspect of grassroots, of why grassroots is important. The second aspect for me is the aspect of a healthy nation, right? Now, a lot of us who are part of this call right now and who may be listening to us in the recording when we posted, would have actively played sports when we were younger. But then as we got in sync with our professional lives, that tends to dilute itself a little bit, right? And at
Correct.
this point comes the other aspect of grassroots sport, which is playing as part of the community, putting together a community of football lovers, cricket lovers, tennis lovers, and just engaging in a competitive way, right? So that's the second aspect of it that I think about. And then the third aspect of it is just using grassroots sport as a means of getting people, getting young kids to come out of their situations which may not be the best, which is where the UN Sustainability Development Goals and how sports can be used as a tool to achieve some of those goals becomes a really, really key aspect. And I know when you talked about your experience with hockey, the first thing that you started off on, and in other
Yes.
pictures of yours, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about this third aspect, and then of course go into the first two aspects as well.
Yes, so for me, there are two clear distinctions. One is, as I always say, it's the end, where the end is to broad base that pyramid that we have, to make it strong, ensure that a lot of people, children or adults, have access to good facilities, exposure to sports in every sort of way, so that it becomes a part of their lifestyle, and then we will see the results from there on. The other being the means, as you said, that a tool towards addressing some social issues that we have, whether it is women empowerment, gender equality, education, health. Sports have been used in troubled areas to bring about some sort of peace. It has been used as a form of recreation for people suffering from or who have been addicted to drugs. So that power that sports has to bring about societal change without enforcing it. So because people have a natural affinity to engage in some sport in some form or the other, it makes it a lot more easier to get people out of their current circumstances, as you said, and hopefully make it a little better, minimize the impact. And from here, I would also like to take it to, in a way that, see, these should be the actual objectives of grassroots. When you're looking at, my objective is to create a healthy nation, my objective is to address certain social issues, performance will become a byproduct.
Yeah.
But it's something that you cannot control. What you can control is that I can try and get every child to play. I can get every person to have some sort of physical activity 3 times a week in their life. Whether they go on to become world beaters or not is not in my hands. But that will definitely happen as a byproduct of realigning your objectives of what you want to achieve out of grassroots sports.
Let's use a couple of examples here, Appa, since
Yeah.
we've seen those examples, right? So the Odisha swimming program, for example, that we had played some role in initiating, and of course now with me being with JSW, of course, continue to have a role there. So I remember how it all started with having a high performance center for swimming, which is where you will be able to create the next, hopefully, swimmers who go on and perform admirably at the international stage. Because admittedly, India and swimming is not a very explosive relationship right now. But which is where we realize, right, that in order to have that elite catchment become strong, there was a very strong need to create that grassroots ecosystem.
Pipeline. Yes.
And that pipeline wasn't just because we wanted better prospects to come into the elite program, but it was because swimming as a life skill is so important. The number of drowning related deaths that we
Absolutely.
put in as a reason for these grassroots centers to come up.
Correct. Like India is known, during the course of our study and research, we came to know India is known as the drowning capital of the world.
Yeah.
With a 7,000-kilometer coastline, it is bound to happen. But we also expect that with so much of exposure to water of our landmass, we would be better at swimming.
Right? So that I think is a very key example to understand the role that grassroots sports plays, right? And I guess the reason why we are also talking about this is this will lend itself to an additional layer of why there are so many opportunities to be self-employed or to create entrepreneurial ventures out of the different avenues within grassroots sports, right? Another example which I would love to cite is that I don't know how many of you have come across this book, which is called as Say Yes to Sports. And this book was written on the initiative that was started in the government of Haryana by the sports director there, who happened to be an IPS officer. He started a program called as PAD, which was called the Sports and Physical Aptitude Test. And the basis of this program was on the Bolsa Familia program, which was a very, I would say, cataclysmic program in Brazil, where in order to get the youth of that country to refrain from negative activities such as drug abuse and so on and so forth, they asked people to report into this program, to enroll into this program. And if you reported for 22 days in a month and you had to test yourself, if you had refrained from all of these negative elements, there'd be a certain stipend which would be given for you in order to sustain your life. What was done in Haryana by the sports director was he used this and translated that into sports, wherein go ahead, pick a sport of your choice, report to play that sport for 22 days in a month, refrain from all of the other activities that can help that can cause you to digress from your sporting prowess, and that's it. We'll give you a stipend for this. And as somebody in the comment section has rightly highlighted, yes, Haryana, this program went a long way in helping Haryana achieve its status of the sports capital of India, especially from a performance point of view. Now, we know that Odisha also gets called the sports capital of India from a very different perspective. But yes, Haryana, I believe anybody who's followed national sports will realize that Haryana has got tremendous performance outputs when it has come to national level games.
So yeah, addressing what Anand and Arko have mentioned, if we are looking at investment in grassroots as a means to build a nation, as nation building, yes, I believe that we will meet that objective one way or the other if investment is directed towards grassroots sports. But if it is looked at purely from the lens of I want to produce champions only, and only then will I invest in grassroots sports, one is that period is maybe 10 years, could be 15. So that's half a generation. And there is no guarantee of absolute results. But you can guarantee one thing. So that's what, if you change the lens, if you change your objectives, automatically you're going to ensure that you're going to meet, going to achieve the results that you're working towards. And the byproduct will be performance. And but Sumit, the examples that you cited to were, it only shows that people are thinking on these lines in this country. It's not that there is a huge gap in, just because there's a gap in our medals at the international level does not mean that thinking has not started, and implementation of such ideas at the grassroots have not started. What it needs is things to be picked up at a larger level, and the same thinking to percolate across state governments, across corporates, so that everybody does their bit towards grassroots. It's that's my take.
Let me stop you right there, because I think you've provided a great cue here to delve into what I believe is a very important question, right? What are the sort of avenues that exist? I think this is a great point to sort of delve into. Of course, I think the government's role in this whole thing is going to be super critical. So we'll talk a little about that. Just I think it's time to also get into those different types of companies or types of avenues that exist for you to get into the grassroots sporting ecosystem, which I believe will be a significant interest. It will be of significant interest to anybody who's listening to us right now.
Yeah. So government for the next decade and a half will remain the biggest spender in grassroots sports by far, because they have.
But why do you say government? Okay, I understand government. Okay, and government becomes a really easy answer to give for everything because they typically have the most people. But why do you say government?
So government is mandated to invest in sports infrastructure, in facilities, in schools. They invest in programs to encourage sports within schools, to encourage youth participation. They are also funding grassroots sports through competitions, through hostels. So by legacy and by the outlay that they have in their sports budgets, they are going to be one of the largest spenders in sports. But having said that, I also believe that there is a lot of work that all of us can do, because grassroots sports is such a vast space to fill in that it is unfair to expect purely only the government to take up that responsibility.
Agreed. So on that government aspect, right?
Yeah.
sorry to cut you off on that government
Please go
aspect. I think it's
Yeah.
important to put an example to exemplify it, right? And again, because Odisha is close to home, I think that becomes the best example to cite when it comes to all of the different infrastructure. Now, everybody who's been looking it from the outside in lens is Odisha is hosting the Hockey World Cup, Odisha is hosting the Asian Athletics Championship. They're setting up these high performance centers. But the inside lens is all of those 100 plus infrastructures that were planned back in 2020-ish at the grassroots level, at the local government, local
Yes,
body level,
yes.
at the district level, which are now going to give the opportunity of a common man to go and access infrastructure for at least all the indoor sports and sports like football, right? And
Correct.
I vaguely remember the number, but I believe it was 100 plus, correct?
Yeah, I think it was 88 centers
Right.
across 100 plus urban local bodies. So there were
But
some centers that would service more than one
multiple urban
urban
local
local body.
bodies.
Yeah, but it was a 600 plus crore project that was sanctioned, and that is actually investment in grassroots infrastructure
Exactly.
in the purest form. Because you're taking it to those places you're taking it to those places where it is not commercially viable to possibly for a private
Exactly.
entity to go there and make it sustainable or make some money out of it. So that
It,
is where the
it
government's
brings
role
us to a very
comes in.
interesting point that we discussed when we were talking about infrastructure, right? So what people need to understand is people who come from tier one cities, Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi, we've seen a huge rise in the number of sports infrastructures that have been set up for pay as you play avenues, right?
Correct.
We see football turfs everywhere. Now, back in 2017, when I went to Odisha and Appa, when he came in 2019, there wasn't a single football turf in the capital city of Bhubaneswar. And that was the case until the point we both left in 2022.
Yes.
And there's a very simple reason for that, right? For a private player to come in and make a commercially viable venture needs that there is an inbound interest. And nobody was willing to be the first one to go and test it out that, hey, I build an infrastructure worth 50 lakhs or a crore. And then what if there aren't enough takers for this? And, I end up burning my money, which is never going to be a problem in big cities such as Bombay, Delhi, where we've seen not just individual astroturfs coming up, but companies coming up, which have set up 10, 20, 30 astroturfs across a plethora of cities within India, right? So, which is where the role of government becomes super critical. And the way I like to capture that entire narrative is the government needs to set up this infrastructure until it becomes viable for the private player to come and take up that mantle. Now, with all of these
Correct.
centers, there will be a very clear realization that, boss, it's a for-profit
There
venture.
is a market.
You are making money when you set up these infrastructures, and that's when a private player has the confidence, and which is where all of these Invest Odisha conclaves or any government investment conclave becomes critical in highlighting what the opportunities in that state look like. So government,
Correct.
let's in interest of time, we've talked about government. Some of the other spaces which or some of the other type of companies that dabble in the space of grassroots, Appa. Your previous organization is one such
Yeah.
organization. Let's talk about that
We've
aspect.
been in this. So we've been in this space for about a decade. But if I have to bucket it, let me bucket into four categories. One are your sporting goods manufacturers and retailers, right? Everybody knows of one sports shop which is very close to their house and where they've picked up all their childhood sporting equipment. And those local sports manufacturing companies, you have Mirad, you have Jalandhar, which are hubs and have aided us in our uh, sports during our childhood. Then, over the last maybe 2 decades, sports education and training organizations have come up. So, right from trying to provide a structured sports curriculum in schools. So, the base is that like everything that happens in school has an educational objective. Sports too has an educational objective, which means that it needs to be treated as a subject, which means that it needs a structured curriculum, it needs lesson plans. It should not be that, okay, somebody is out there sending the kids and going out there and sweating and coming back and they are done, right? So companies with that belief have come in and they are working across the country in their capacities in trying to provide sports to every child within the school. Then you have your
Papa,
local
let's
clubs.
try to bucket
Sorry.
it. Sorry to cut you. Let's try to
Sure.
bucket it, right? So we've talked about government intervention where
Mhm.
government is doing everything. Okay, so we've talked about that.
Yeah.
Then we come to the private companies who are trying to do it for a living. Who are trying to make it for profit, and then we'll go to the NGO aspect of it, wherein
We will.
CSR
Yes.
funding and all of those avenues are playing a very big role in trying to uh, get into those aspects which cannot be addressed by for-profit ventures.
Yeah. Let's say they are supplementing the work that the government is doing. So it is government plus CSR. That is one.
Right.
And then you have your for-profit organization. So I spoke about these goods manufacturers and retailers, sports education companies. You have these local event management companies who organize these tournaments in different ways, raise sponsorships in small amounts here and there. And then you have these local academies and clubs that work. So they provide after school coaching, or they provide some sort of recreation to people around this core. You have your other services companies which have over the last decade, last 5 years, I would say, and COVID has kind of accelerated the growth that they have seen. So whether it's a Playo or a Cult Fit, you have companies which are again servicing that layer of people who are part of the community, who are if I can expand the sport definition of sports into physical activity, then these people are also part of grassroots sports.
Got
because
it.
they are helping people like us engage in some sort of physical activity to make ourselves more healthy.
Let's take granular examples, right? So we talked about grassroots sports and why it has created a burst of companies in this space, right? One critical thing for everyone to, I think, be cognizant of is the fact that the unit economics in grassroots sports is amazing. And that is probably one of the reasons why so many companies are in this space and are sustainable. I mean, they may not be minting money left, right, center, but they're at least sustainable. It's because a lot of the overhead costs are not present for them, right? Let's take a simple example. If I were a football coach, if I were an AIFFD licensed coach, I could simply go down to my building. There's a football ground there that I can tap into for free or for a very minimal rental. I can do word of mouth marketing by just simply putting some pamphlets in the 20, 30 buildings that exist in like a half a kilometer radius. And I can literally have 5 batches, 7 days a week running without any overhead cost. All I need to do is get a few cones, get a few footballs, market myself,
and I'm set. And you're set.
And my skill set.
Exactly. Yes, and you're set. So that's what you're at that unit economics level. You are a profitable enterprise.
Exactly. So that's the reason, right? Now, what I find very interesting in this space is people have or creatively people who are interested in the sporting ecosystem have picked up on all the different things that are of interest and are trying to capitalize on it, right? So, for example, let's talk about sports tech, for instance, right? Now, typically when AI-based video capturing came to the fore, it was with a lens of trying to identify how to improve the performance of an athlete by being able to observe his movement minutely. And having seen like just to delve into a past experience, Aspire in Qatar, who was one of the foremost in trying to set up something like this, have a football ground with cameras all across the ground as well as sensors under the stadium, under the pit, just trying to capture a lot of this data, right? So when this video based performance improvement came into the fore, it was mainly from an elite performance standpoint. However, switch to today, there are opportunities out there. There are companies out there that are looking to capture video just for you and me, to see how well or how badly we play the sport, and for us to be able to improve our own performance while looking at this, right? So that also has become possible now because of the increased enthusiasm.
Penetration, it's democratization of tech, right?
Right.
And you have a company like SportVote, which is able to live stream matches at the grassroots level. It is As you say, it is helping in performance analysis. It is helping in talent identification. Just imagine so I remember back in my playing days, selectors used to come and watch our matches on the ground, like in the under 15, under 17 age group. Now, I was based out of Mumbai, fairly small geography, immense talent, but fairly small geography. Now, imagine what would happen to us, to the selectors of possibly the Maharashtra cricket team or the Tamil Nadu cricket team. They are not able to reach everywhere. They are relying on local reportage and those newspaper articles and some news coming in saying that, okay, these kids are doing well at these places.
Yeah.
But what such companies are doing is you don't need to be there. You can look at the videos, and now it just makes that, like, what we say that
easier. Simple.
Yeah. So no talent should be left behind. No one should slip through the cracks. So this takes us one step closer to that statement when we look at. Please go ahead.
On this point, there are some good names that Anand has put up in the chat. Sportwhat, which you've already alluded to, who's into the business of being able to produce content and stream content either on their own platform or on well-penetrated platforms like YouTube and so on. Cricket clubs, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is an avenue to be able to host your tournaments and have it's basically a tournament management system of sorts, if I remember vividly. But even if it's not, that is also one avenue of sports tech startups that exist, wherein host the entire tournament, have the scores, goal scorers, how many runs have been scored in cricket by which batsman, which bowler has taken how many wickets. So that just lends more information to this entire scouting ecosystem that is now being built on a tech layer, vis-a-vis the way you alluded to how it happened, how it used to happen maybe 10, 15 years ago, right? Another great example that comes to my mind, and since we're talking examples, and since these are all companies which could be of interest to people who want to look at this from a job opportunity point of view, Sports for All is another example that comes to mind that has deeply penetrated itself into school sports ecosystem, while also using technology to make the talent of these young sports persons accessible to whoever would like to have access to it, right? So that's another example that comes to my mind. You've got examples to add on the private space. I mean, of course, there are the typical examples of the sports village and all, who are into hosting these competitions at mega scale, who are into after school programs or into school sports programs. So there are these examples, and there are multiple companies like Sports Village and Edu Sports that do this.
Yes, so that is, I think we've cited enough examples that cover different verticals within the for-profit space. Maybe we should also spend a bit of time talking about the not-for-profit organizations, because their work is also extremely commendable in this ongoing endeavor.
Yeah. So on to the next part, Appachu, you were talking about the not-for-profit space and how that has played a very, very important role in developing the grassroots ecosystem of our country, right? And I 100% agree. Before I let you talk about it, just the reason I feel that space is so important is because of that word access, right? Now, governments create infrastructures. There will be people who will be able to access them either for free or at a very minimalistic price, right? So that's fairly accessible. The bulk of the players that exist in the ecosystem are private players who are doing this for profit. And the accessibility to those avenues will be very difficult for the certain section of the society.
Comes at a premium. Yeah.
Which is where the role of these NGOs, not-for-profits, becomes so important. And we've seen some such amazing examples. Before I let you talk about it, I want to bring to your attention, if you remember Ardor Football Academy back in Bhubaneswar. So Ardor Football Academy was, just for everyone's reference, started by somebody who had a career in investment banking. But he was so passionate about football that he started working in the slums of Bhubaneswar. And one of the biggest slums in Asia, after the one in Mumbai, is in Bhubaneswar. And that person now runs an entire footballing program out of that slum, including now setting up a residential academy, because now he doesn't want to restrict himself just to getting people to play and come out of their otherwise, fairly dark life that they've sometimes had to lead in these slums. But he also now wants them to go to elite levels. He's gotten scouts from Spain to come and scout these kids. He's had a kid who's gone and given a trial for Bayern Munich Football Club. So that is the sort of impact you can create by dabbling in this particular space. With that example, I'll let Appa talk about it a little more, because he's worked on ground with an initiative similar, I believe.
So before I speak, Sumit, I think the person wouldn't mind you sharing his name because he's done so much good work. I think you should also let people know who this person is.
Yeah, so it's been a few years since I've spoken to him. So I remember his second name. Do you remember the full name, Appa? Jaydev Mahapatra. Yes, now I remember the
Jaydev
first name
Mahapatra.
as well.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I remembered Mr. Mahapatra. I was trying to remember his first name. So his name is Jaydev Mahapatra. Add this guy on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to him. The amount of knowledge he has in this space is pretty impressive. So I would request everyone to talk to him and support his initiative in any which way is possible. I know for a fact that he was looking to raise some funds for his residential academy. So a free shout out for anybody who wants to help him out. It's going to the right place. Yeah, go ahead, Appa.
Yes, so I was fortunate enough to start my sports journey by working for a sports NGO called Hockey Village India. They were based out of Rajasthan, about 150 kilometers from Jaipur, in a district called Dausa, in a village called Jatwara. It was started by a German lady. For all the people, her name is Andrea Tamshan, a very strong-willed person who has done loads for the people in that region. She was a former hockey player herself back in Germany, and then something brought her to India, and then she started. When I was working with her, she had a hockey academy in that village. She was running a small English medium school. She had plans to set up a CBSE school there and an AstroTurf. She had put in her own money and raised funds to buy a piece of land and get construction done. So I'm citing a small example, but the larger point I'm trying to make here is that there are people out there who are not just talking, but actually walking the talk, as they say. A lot of them are unsung heroes. A lot of them have managed to show a brighter future to the people that they're working with. It may not be in the thousands or in the lakhs, but even if it is one person, they've managed to make that one person's life better. And that is the power of sports. So you have organizations like I think
Soccer.
Mission 11 Million, Sports Foundation, Slum Soccer, OGQ. So all of them are working in they are not for profit organizations working in different verticals of within sports. Not all of them are in grassroots. But what I would also like to highlight here is see, sports is one of the 8 things that you can invest in as part of CSR. All companies are mandated to do it. Obviously, there are bigger issues impacting our country than access to sports infrastructure. There is sanitation, there is women's health, there is education, there is water, and people very rightly so CSR funds are being directed towards such causes. So among those 8 things, sports is the least funded or what do you say, social cause.
Yeah.
Also, I feel another reason for low funding in sports is it's very difficult to measure impact, right? If I'm working towards sanitation, I can measure that I've built 10 toilets. I can measure that I've built 5 wells of drinking water. But here, how do I measure impact becomes a question. The third thing is
on that point itself, before you go
Sure.
to the next point, because there's a very interesting question that Anand has put up there as to how important is the role of companies like Reliance and JSW and Tata. I think you've taken 3 very, very incredible names in the space of sports and CSR funding. Reliance through Reliance Foundation for Youth Sports, JSW through JSW Foundation and Inspire Institute of Sport, which is a trust in itself, and the Tatas, who of course have probably
Are
set
the
a
OGs.
legacy or who
Yes,
started off
Tata
the
has
entire
been doing it
act.
even
Exactly.
before this became a trend.
Exactly.
So Anand, so we were coming to it, but yeah, these large organizations have taken up that mantle, and they also realize that for organizations of that size having such a large impact on corporate India, their role is also that much bigger. And every day they are working to expand their reach and maximize the impact to as many children and as many youth in the country as they can. Parth is right there. So they also they work in the space of competitions, creating access to competitions, which is very important at grassroots, creating academies, using sports as a tool for social development. So all of these organizations and many more are playing an important role. I I will say it is not a big part because there is a lot of scope which they also acknowledge and they are working towards. So
And
yes, in the larger scheme of things, it may not amount to that big, but it's definitely a big chunk of what is currently being done.
yeah,
Yeah, but
and
so
yeah,
just
you were
coming to
making a
the third
point.
point, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So the third thing I said, right? So one is that there are bigger issues impacting our country, and hence people are not spending enough CSR funds towards sports. Second is how do you measure impact, and third is, I guess, it is also because it kind of borders between marketing and CSR. So very easy to misconstrue organizing a grassroots badminton tournament as a marketing activity. So I guess people who are taking those decisions are also wary of that fact that would this be looked at as marketing. So I would rather play a safer bet on investing on some of the other things.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But I
that's
tell
my
you
take.
this,
Yeah.
right? On that point, and I've realized this a lot more as part of my latest job, right? A lot of these companies, so another example that comes to my mind is Vedanta, right? All of these companies who've spread themselves out across different parts of India for either setup of their plants or setup of their establishments, the amount of things that they do for sports in those pockets without ever really caring about the visibility that comes from it, just to positively uplift the area that is doing so much for their core business is purely heartening.
Yes.
I was recently in Nagpur as part of a football initiative, and I didn't know the amount of things that JSW is doing there to uplift football, which I came to know through the contribution of the Nagpur District Football Association. Similarly, Vedanta for what it does in Rajasthan or even in close to Jharsuguda, I believe, which is where another Vedanta setup was there. Reliance on its part, like somebody highlighted in the comment section, through the school football and athletics tournaments that they've conducted in, I believe, 30 plus cities, is just another uh, example of how the philanthropy from these corporates is going a long way in getting that sporting conversation and sporting activity starting off at the lowest levels. Yeah, like pointed out by Anand, it was 100 plus cities pre-COVID. So that in itself, I believe, whether there are marketing related goals aligned with it or not, or whether the CSR law of the state, I know for a fact that the CSR law states that you cannot get any marketing impetus out of it. The goodwill is so strong that that message will spread, irrespective of whether you can actively market it or not. So,
Absolutely. What I try to bring out were probably certain hindrances on the part of decision makers towards investment of CSR funds in sports. But yes, as you rightly said, Sumit, the work these people are doing is phenomenal. Kudos to them. All of us in some way have been a part of their vision and work towards it. So we continue that they spend more and do more for Indian sports.
right. Another interesting question which has come in from Anand is around the PPP model, right? And it's a very good question because it opens up a lot of things, right? So let's talk a little bit about what this PPP model essentially is, right? As the name suggests, it's a public-private partnership, but there are multiple ways in which you can construct such a partnership. One very popular model is the public partner, which is the government, goes ahead and sets certain infrastructure. The private partner, through its CSR funding, comes and takes up the mantle of running these programs on their own dime, right? So that's a very broad and an effective way of putting together a PPP partnership. Odisha government has done a very good role of running multiple such partnerships with some of the biggest corporates in the country and in the state, which includes the likes of Reliance, JSW, Aditya Birla, the Rumtas, uh, and I know for a fact that I'm missing out on a few large corporate names here, but you get the gist, right? Now, what this does is it creates a pipeline right from the grassroots to the elite, and it creates a lot of job opportunities both on the technical and non-technical aspect of things, right? So let's take the example of any of these programs. In order to get a good pipeline of 20 or 40 athletes in a particular sport, there is reason to do very extensive scouting, right? Now that
Absolutely.
scouting
Yeah.
requires getting together a lot of technical people who will be doing the actual aspect of identifying the talent.
Identifying talent. Yes.
Brings in sports tech companies who may be able to amplify the effect of such a scouting activity. Brings in sports management professionals who will be able to do the activity of actually conducting these scouting drives. And now when you try to bring all of these talent right up to the elite level, all of this happens once more, but at a different scale or at a different level. You've got better coaches, more qualified coaches, more sports management professionals, more operational professionals, and so on and so forth.
So let me just try to capture this in a different way, Sumit. So
Right.
talent. Let me first talk about talent identification, because I think probably it's one of the most misunderstood as well as abused words when it comes in sports. Like everything is talent identification for people. So I believe it consists of 4 parts. Talent identification is just one part of a larger, let's call it talent management, where it starts with talent detection, where you see that possibly this person has something. Then if that person is able to show that talent repeatedly, then we call that part as talent identification. Then talent development, and then taking that talent to that next level. So that pipeline would can be termed as talent management. And as you rightly said, it creates opportunities for sports tech, for technical professionals, for non-technical professionals, for infrastructure requirement, right through this
and the
entire
shebang.
and the shebang, right through this entire pipeline.
Right. At this point, I want to bring in Dr. Sanjana Kiran. She's somebody who is super respected in this space, who both me and Appachu have had the pleasure of interacting with in the past. Ma'am, if you can just speak about the point you just made in the comment section, I think you talking about it will do a little more justice than me just reading it out from the comment section.
Okay, I'll try and explain. I'm sorry, I was not expecting.
I'm
But-
sorry to catch you off
Hi,
guard.
Sanjana.
No. Thank you. So I thought it would be respectful to switch on the camera because it's working today.
Thank you so much.
So yeah,
Thank
when
you
I
for
talk
coming.
about the biopsychosocial impact, right? Really, sport has impact right from the brain to just everything you do, correct? And then sport also gives you opportunities to kind of socialize, to have conversations in community building, correct? And then at a psychological level, we all know that any kind of physical movement enhances production of these, positive, happy hormones, which are so important to regulation of our health. Now, India being a capital of diabetes and hypertension, so more than 60% of the world's diabetes and hypertension resides in India, and that's scary, correct? So if you could highlight these facts, and also, if you could look at research done in other countries, which is showing the direct impact of biopsychosocial impact of sports on an individual. And then because they're healthy and fine and they're happier and they can work together, the production also increases. So if you could show how it impacts the GDP, then I think most of these organizations will have something new to harp about. Because I'm sorry, I'm new to the India scene, just 4 years old to the India scene. What I've seen is mostly outside of India. What I'm looking at is, although my understanding of CSR, I'm not a economics person, so I don't know much about CSR and stuff. But my basic understanding of CSR is this is something which you anyways need to give the government because you save on your income tax. But the manner through which a CSR is given to any organization, any help, is as if they're doing a favor. So my strong belief is sports can give meaning to CSR. Correct? We can give meaning to that CSR money. So if we could have those conversations and help them find a purpose, because right now the purpose is either women or girls, which is very skewed because the assumption is that the boys and men have it easy. Correct? That's so wrong in terms of, yes, we need more women in sport, we need more girls to play, but there's also tons of boys who are working hard and not getting that voice, for example. So I think, and sustainability, that's another, catchy thing these days. So if you could give them more reasons and more purposes, then perhaps they'll catch on to it and then, get onto the bandwagon. Some might want a real kind of like, data-driven explanations on, what is the cause and effect for them to feel better about the CSR spending. There could be those who don't understand that, but they just need to understand what is the purpose of the money I'm spending or the money I'm giving. So from a naive person, I'm a beginner in the business of sport. So mind my brevity. Thank you.
No.
Thank you so much for
Thank you,
that.
Doctor. Since you also mentioned that, you are new to the India scenes, and I think
Yeah.
there is slightly I need to correct it because basically in the CSR, government is not giving anything. It's the profits it's calculated based on the last 3 years profits of any
Yeah.
corporate, which they need to spend what Apache mentioned on the 8 defined sectors, and sport is one
Yeah.
of them.
I missed that bit. I'm sorry. I've been in and out.
No worries, no worries. And second thing is, I don't know basically which part or which program you are particularly talking about, but
Yeah.
there is no gender discrimination when it comes to CSR spend in the country. In fact, just to highlight, in fact, there should be some positive discrimination because let's say Reliance today is spending close to, I can't give you the exact number, but let's say anywhere between 10 to 25 million on the grassroots scene. And out of that, the Reliance Foundation Young Champs, which is the fully residential program based out of Navi Mumbai, the entire program is, as of now, there are no women athletes or women footballers. Entire 89 or 90 kids are men's. When it comes to Reliance
That's worrying.
Foundation, yeah, that's what I'm saying. There should be some positive discrimination. I don't
Yeah.
know, like which program you've seen where
No, where
men
it's
or
my
boys are
exposure.
ignored.
It's my exposure.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct.
it's
That's right.
programs
That's right.
I've worked with because it's pretty skewed. Like I said,
Yeah.
I'm new to I'm not even 4 years new to the CSR scene. I'm like a few months or few weeks new to the CSR scene.
Understood.
And wherever I go in to kind of work on a project, they tell me, can you tweak it to a female population? Or can you tweak it to making something sustainable? And I'm like, why? Because they say that is very attractive. That is when everyone wants to put their money into.
So I'll tell you why
Because
that's the case.
that's popular. Yeah,
I-
that is where I'm coming
I'll
from.
tell you why that
But
is the
thank you,
case.
Anand. Yeah.
It's simply because and it's a scene of thematics. Most organizations who are in the position of giving out these CSR funds have set themes for themselves. And for the benefactors, it becomes important to align with that theme if they want to tap into those funds. So to give you an example, I was speaking to somebody who heads a very elite foundation just a couple of days back. It's an international foundation, and they said a couple of years they had a mandate of raising CSR funds for education, and they fulfilled the entire requirement. They were to do it over a course of 1 year. They did it in 6 months.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward, it's the same thing you want to do for elite sports. Now, Reliance, of course, doesn't have that problem because they fund it primarily through their own CSR funding. But if for anybody else who wanted to do it for elite sports, they would struggle massively because sports and within sports, elite sports is a theme that doesn't really fall under the thematics of most organizations that want to spend their CSR funding.
Yeah,
exactly.
So it's just the convoluted space we operate in, and we just have to make sure.
Yeah, and it's the para athlete season now. The new season is para athletes, and I'm like, don't include it for the sake of, you know what I mean?
Correct.
Yes, let's align. But of course, these are real situations. Like para athletes have been ignored, not discriminated, but ignored, right? Women in sport, yes. Girls in sport, yes. But let's not be so strong about it that we forget the other. It happens even with mental health. Somewhere, any mental health conversation is always about girls. It's about rapes about girls. Boys also get raped. Boys also get sexually harassed. The women coaches are doing it to boy athletes. What about that? Where is their voice? Why is the assumption that if you're a boy, you're safe? Not just in India, everywhere else. But in India, I see these very strong, so that's like I said, I'm still learning. Thank you so much, Anand, for stating that. I'm actually a part of Reliance as well. And I learned so much from you. I'm aware of the program, but I didn't know the gender numbers. So I have something to take on, Anand. And I'll quote you. No, I won't. So,
no, you can. I don't have any issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
Thank you so much.
because just one point, Sumit. Sorry, just one point.
Good.
Because again, I am also slightly biased because I have seen it from an organization's point of view where we don't need anyone else's CSR funds, and we can spend it wherever we please and wherever we think that it will have the most impact. And there is a reason that, let's say the footballing program is primarily for the male footballers as far as the academy part is concerned, because let's say even the commercial aspect doesn't make sense for women football today, right? But it's not that we are completely ignoring that. That is captured through Reliance Foundation Youth Sports, where it's out of 40 cities, If there are 10 men's
Yeah.
teams, there are 2 or 3 women's teams as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry to hijack Sumit and Appachu. Please continue.
No, no.
It's
नहीं
okay.
ऐसा
Yeah.
कुछ hijack नहीं किया आपने है
You've
ना
got 5
आनंद, and वो
seconds before
bias भी
I
नहीं
put you
था.
out of the call.
Yeah, you're not even biased. You're just stating your reality, right? What you have experienced. I'm stating mine. And I don't think we're here to kind of, I don't know, promote any foundation or such. We're just sharing. कि यहाँ पे ये हो रहा है, यहाँ पे ये हो रहा है, because I want to believe that Playmakers Arena is a place where we are trying to understand कि क्या हो रहा है. अगर हो रहा है तो क्या
That's
हो रहा
right.
है, and क्या नहीं हो रहा है,
Absolutely.
और हम क्या कर सकते हैं, है ना?
Absolutely.
So,
That's right,
so
Sanjana. The attempt is just to build awareness right now.
exactly.
And it will come from like what you said earlier, right? Since impact is not captured and reported and documented, it's going to
Yeah,
come from personal experiences only right
yeah,
now.
yeah,
Good or bad, but it's going to be based off personal experiences that yes, that impact can be made in grassroots or not, or it's difficult, or some areas look more pleasant on a CSR
yeah,
report and some areas don't. So
yeah. But as
that's
long as the
correct.
CSR money is getting directed towards sports, I'm happy.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
let's take that as the cue to take some more questions, because I think we'll have to wind up in 10 minutes. So let's take some
Yes.
questions that we have, and we're happy to get onto the careers side of things as well. So I know we've talked about it in bits and pieces as we were going through the session, but if there are any specific questions that anyone has around career opportunities or any other thoughts for that matter on whatever me and Apachu and now Dr. Sanjana and Anand have spoken about, feel free to put them or ask them. Just unmute yourself and ask the question.
Maybe I'll start off, Sumit.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you. So, what do you think are the kind of skill set that one requires to work in grassroots sports?
So I'll take us back to the buckets that we talked about, right? Now you could simply be a coach or a person who can do coaching of football or cricket or any other sport that you have expertise over and perhaps even have a license for, right? So that becomes the quintessential self-employment opportunity that exists. Now,
Correct.
extrapolate that a little and it can translate into an entrepreneurial opportunity, wherein now you have a company name and now you start doing these coaching programs at 10 cities or in 10 different parts of one city. So that now translates itself into an entrepreneurial opportunity, right?
Mhm.
So that's as easy or as difficult as it can get. Easy because you can start it off as just yourself. Difficult because once then you start building layers over it, that's when the overheads start coming in, and that's when you have to be careful about whether you can turn it into a sustainable venture or not. So that's the
Okay.
one aspect of it. The other aspect, like I said, is identifying where are the gaps within this and addressing that, which we talked about through the example of integrating technology into it. People want to play and want to capture their performances, put video in, that becomes an entrepreneurial opportunity. People want to capture their records, put scores and individual scores into a platform, that becomes an opportunity. Talk about an avenue such as Netflix for football, which is happening very, very strongly in Europe, right? You've got initiatives like SBP, you've got certain other initiatives which have now sort of become like a Netflix for sports coaching, wherein you bring in these elite coaches and get them to talk about nuances of sports coaching.
Like master classes.
Exactly, master classes, right? So that becomes another avenue of how you can tap into it. Now, as individuals, there are a lot of companies out there that we talked about who are constantly looking for people, right? Either you can be a technical resource so that you can then become a coach in a school or in a grassroots training center, or you're on the management side of things wherein you can mantle the business development opportunities, the sales and marketing opportunities, or pure play operational opportunities that exist across companies like EduSports, Sports Village, Sports for All, Who Sports, Sportify, within Reliance Foundation, within JSW Foundation, within IIS. So there, I believe the most active space right now where there is an opportunity is grassroots sports. And this the scale of this opportunity is only going to go up.
I had something
So-
to add. Sorry,
Yes.
I had something to add to what
Yes,
you were
please.
saying just now.
Yes, please.
So, yes, I agree with you that there's a lot of opportunity in grassroots, and I think that is where, most of us should be putting our energies in, because if that is set right, then everything takes care of itself, correct? And also, if we started with, say, 1 million grassroots, less than 1,000 make it to the top, and perhaps
Yeah.
less than 100 of them make a career out of it.
Yeah.
So that these are facts. Like each time I look at Khelo India, I feel pride that so many young children are participating. But my immediate worry is after iske baad kya? What's next for them? So I think at Grassroots, if we can put our energies, we can actually plan the after sports kind of a thing as well, and the values they get out of playing sport. Most of what I am today is output of what I gained through sports in my high school and primary school. Hannah. So
Yeah.
having said that, Grassroots, the age groups are they're children, right? So we want to be very responsible. So whoever engages with these children has to be responsible in terms of their understanding of a child, in understanding of a child's ecosystem, in understanding the stakeholders of the children, the grandparents, the parents, the school system, because these are also important people in the life of the child. So how do we get started on the same page? Can there be something like, I don't know, a certification or something which gets everyone started on the same page? All those individuals, personnel who are engaging with Grassroots, something like a level 1 certification, level 2 certification, something that's available for free online, where they can just latch onto it, and something also that looks good on their resume to get jobs. Because ultimately at Grassroots, things look very interesting for us. At least for me, at 53, I'm in a place where I don't have to work for money. So if I decide to drop everything and go work for Grassroots, I'm not doing it for money. But most who work in the Grassroots are also looking for jobs, and rightly so. So
yeah, that's a great point, and that's where the whole conversation about standardization adds credence, right? Now, some entities have started adopting it. So, to cite an example, there is a Grassroots license that AIFF offers, which is very, very
Correct.
specific to the needs of what's needed in grassroots football. Now, and it's a license which you can actually hold and get jobs, because that's listed as part of job opportunities in football. So I agree with you. Like, if we had more of that, there would be standardization which creeps in, and then more opportunities to actually make that a commercial opportunity for yourself.
Yeah,
Anand,
and not just coaching, just everything. Any
Agreed.
person, individual working around it, managing them. Because we talk about sports business, sports management at the elite level. We think that is where you need education. But I think where we need our most education is at the grassroots.
Yeah.
I might be very good with elite, but with grassroots, I still have a lot to learn. So
Fair.
all my 25 years of experience in sports has not prepared me for grassroots, and that's a fact. So I will also need those courses, Hannah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
very,
So-
very, very valid point. I think Anand wants to add something.
Yeah, so Dr. Zanna, why don't you work with us into creating something, let's say very, very basic, because let's say today only football is something where the licensing structures have come to India. And in fact, we as Reliance Foundation Youth Sports, we also did train the coaches program, where I think along with AIFF and AITC, one more organization, these courses were conducted in India at a large scale. So can something be done if you are, let's say, if you have time and if you are ready to put in efforts? We will work with you to develop something where, let's say, at least some kind of basic certification can be given. Obviously, it can over time, it can be taken to next level, but it can be started with a very, very small thing. So that is when we can talk offline on that one. And you already know.
No, we can actually discuss it here. Not an issue at all. So what I'm saying
So
is,
that we can,
like you correctly mentioned,
yeah. I just want to make one point very quickly before that. That today many a times we talk about our athletes are not supported and things like those. I actually have a very counter opinion. Our athletes, I think we have the most overly supported athletes at the top and most under supported athletes at the grassroots.
I'm with you.
Our athletes, I think today if you go in the, and I'm talking this from, I'm not just making it up in my head. So 5 years back when I was into trading, and I met this guy called, first name I'm forgetting, Nico Best or someone like that. He was the goalkeeper of gold winning hockey team of Great Britain during the London Olympics in 2012. And this guy was a banker, right? Today, just give me one example out of our any elite athlete who, let's say, for God forgive.
Sorry, but I think for the benefit of those who may end up watching this video, I'd like to reiterate some of the points I've made. So from the perspective of what is required to do to work in this space, one, as I said, is patience and to buy into that long-term vision, because results will take time. So if you are fairly convinced that yes, the space I'm working in is one that's going to create a lot of impact for my country 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line, then you can work in Grassroots. Second,
Sorry, before you go
is-
on the second point,
Yeah.
I just want to add on this point, right? More patience important, but the bigger problem, and this is a practical problem I've seen, is the willingness to let go. When you're operating at Grassroots, you need to
Yes.
realize that there will come a time when somebody from this pool of 100 or 1000 is going to go on to become a huge hit. And you will probably not be the person who's going to get the accolades for that. But you should be okay with that.
Very important. Yeah.
Now, continue with the second point, Appa.
Yeah. The second point was, as I said, that love and passion for the sport should be pure, because that is what is going to help make you get up every single day and go into your work. Because as I said, the results may not come in every day, but that passion will ensure that you are able to work in grassroots sports every day in, day out. Number three I was talking about is to have great organizational skills, because you're working in a space which is between the organized and the unorganized sectors. You're working for people who want results and let's say have a corporate mindset, but you're working with people who may not be very computer savvy, who may not. So you may need to work in the local languages. You may need to. So you're working right from a groundsman to somebody who's supplying you chairs and tables to. So it's fairly unorganized, but for you to be able to deliver, you need to have that kind of bandwidth and that kind of ability, as you said, willing to get your hands dirty to work with people from across the spectrum. So these are three things which I believe are essential for somebody, and it kind of stands out for somebody to actually work in Grassroots and to be able to devote their life to working in Grassroots. And as you said, letting go is such an important aspect. Understanding systems as well. So as much as understanding systems, to be able to have
Get
ability
into the
to set
system
up,
and work.
yeah, and also to realize that this is a gray area. This requires a system. I need to put in place something that evolves over a period of time. You cannot bring in a complex system right out the bat, because then it's going to fall through. People are not going to be able to adapt to it. But at the same time, try to put in place something. Otherwise, what the work that you would have done, and by the time you leave it, you've left it where it was. If you're not putting in place systems, because systems are something that will help it to run even after people have left. These are probably 4-5 things that are required for people to work in grassroots sports. For those whoever would be listening in to this, yeah.
And I know Anand wants to come in, but I'll let you come in, Anand, but just before I add something to what Appa just said, right? And I speak about this to a lot of sports management students that I speak to as part of coursework that I deliver. Most people who get into working in sports do it because they feel that they will get the same kick out of it that they get when they're playing sports. The reality is often often a little different. But believe you me when I say this, the most gratification you will ever get is when you are actually working in grassroots. You will have the highs, you will have the celebrity moments when you work in elite sports or when you become part of world scale events. But the true gratification that you felt when you were playing the closest you can ever come to that in sports profession is when you are delivering things at the grassroots level.
I have a question for both of you, and I think Appa, you have highlighted important aspects in terms of, let's say, intent and as well as willingness. And I think this was a very similar advice you gave to me 5.5 years back. That's why, Sumit, the point you are raising, I never faced it, because he told me that beta MBA किया है, काम तो तेरे को Word पे ही करना है, Word, Excel, or like let's say Microsoft family, right? So yeah, that is absolutely important. But the question is, today a lot of people have this, I don't know, misunderstanding or people. So whenever something starts becoming popular, there are opportunists who come in and start taking advantage. So let's say 5-6 years back, there were only 3 or 4 specialized sports management programs in the country. Today there are 15, 20, and then couple of established institutions are also coming up with specialized sports management programs. I won't take any names. Some of these are very good for the ecosystem, but see, at the end of the day, many a times they sell false dreams. And some of the IPL teams have also done it, that they have gone ahead and partnered with international institutes. Sometimes the dream is sold that, this program might help you achieve heights, or there is a lot of mis-selling. Like any other, I'm not saying it's only happening in sports, but like any other field where some traction is there. So 2 points: how important is a specialized sports management program? That is one. And second, how important is it whether you do it from, let's say, a very hefty, an institution taking a hefty fee in India or outside India? Well, I know Sumit and Appa, both of you have done general management, but one from India, one from outside India. So your views on this, please.
So first and foremost, absolutely agree with you with the overselling that happens. Not a fan of it. Having been entrenched into that sort of an ecosystem for a while now, absolutely not a fan of it. Again, without taking names, there are some who do a half decent job of it, and there are some who do an absolutely appalling job of it. So the critical aspect there is, what is the sort of ecosystem partnerships that you as an institute have been able to develop, right? That is what any student, anybody who wants to get into a sports management institute should first ask the question when they're talking to these institutes. Where are my internship opportunities going to come from? Where are my job opportunities going to come from? What are those ecosystem partnerships that you've developed as an institute that I can tap into? And that holds good for any aspect of education, but very specifically for sports education, simply because the opportunities are limited and operate in niches, right? And to add to that, the remuneration opportunities that come in exchange are also capped to a certain extent. So that's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is an even more beautiful question. I'll tell you why, because I've answered it for a lot of people in the past. As sports fans, why do people want to work in sports? I would like to believe that people want to work in sports because they've been an avid consumer, an avid watcher, an avid enthusiast of sports all their life, right from a very early age.
And they see areas where things need to improve, and they
Correct.
can
Correct. Right. So if you're going to tell me, and I had this option, right? I had this option of perhaps pursuing a general MBA or doing an MBA from one of the premier sports management institutes abroad. I had that option in front of me. I wanted to do an MBA from an elite institute like Oxford simply because I wanted the business skill sets that are important. I wanted to see what is happening in other industries that I can transfer into sports. Because, and as humbly as I can put it, no sports management institute is going to teach me sport. I have been consuming it for the last 15, 20 years of my life. I have all the subject matter expertise from reading and from absorbing it without anybody having to teach that to me. It's the business aspect of it. It's the management aspect of it. It's the way of how you can leverage the sports business model in different ways, and learnings from other industries that you can bring into sports, that is of critical importance. Which is why I, on a personal level, always advise folks that go ahead with a general MBA, but try to get your internships or try to get your work experiences in sports related fields so that you can do that cross pollination, which is important. That is how I would answer that question.
Yeah, so just one point on that. So basically, very, very important point, and thanks for highlighting that. And that's why I think somewhere, and Aditya, you have also just messaged, the Playmakers Premium or Let's Help, I don't know whichever will be the name, because I just checked that both of them are same thing. But giving pro bono opportunities, and which Akash highlighted in the last session or last episode of our podcast, if we are able to do that, I think we'll bring a lot of brilliant knowledge from other industries to the sports industries.
Absolutely.
And in fact, that I highlighted the same thing with Devang as well. And I told him that, this is one thing which we are trying to do. And if you want, we can give such opportunities from our ecosystem as well. So I think that will be very, very important. And we can play a big role. Who knows, after 10 years after, there will be a Playmakers Varsity.
Why not?
So I'd also like to take a stab at the question that Anand put forth, right? See, like in other sectors, this is a sign that the sector is growing, that there are that there are other organizations or people who feel that there is opportunity in sports education as well. Like if we call this sports education or sports management education.
Yeah.
So this is a positive side. At the same time, yes, some institutes may be doing a good job. Some institutes may not have put together such a good course, but that will get filtered out and they'll all fall into one pyramid where at the top you'd have the really good programs and at the middle the ones who are not that good and who may not, and accordingly they'll fall into a certain fee bracket as well, right? So today there may be more than 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 engineering colleges in India, but you know who are the top 10. In 5 years from now, you're going to know which are the top 10 sports management programs in India by their repute, by the quality of the alumni they have. So I'm not honestly not worried about overselling because there is a certain volatility in a nascent market that is being taken advantage of, but things will settle down soon enough. A very clear picture will be out that this is a good program to take up and this is not.
No, I think just a follow up on what Anand mentioned about pro bono opportunities. If we think about just the scale of people who want to contribute to grassroots in some shape and form, it's definitely big and growing. But then the initial perception people have is I necessarily need to go to the grassroots, be on site, and be in operational roles. Whereas there could be
Yes.
product-led opportunities, there could be, let's say, just analytics or consulting led opportunities where people need not be on site. They can be at their own working locations and then still be able to contribute. So what could be some potential options for someone like that?
Look at COVID. Everything that people did when COVID was on is an opportunity, and the form of education via video, the form of leveraging technology is how you can contribute. Like Dr. Sanjana before us mentioned, she's a powerhouse when it comes to psychology or nutrition for that matter, right? If she starts a podcast and starts allowing people to come in and gain that knowledge over the platform of video, that's the job done, right? So I guess the distinction comes from whether you want to do it as your day job or whether you want to do it as a contributor. The two things I believe have very separate answers. If you want to do it as a day job, there's a lot more you'll probably have to end up doing. You can still create business models from the room of your house. You can, but I just believe that there is a lot more you will be able to achieve if you get out there. If you're thinking of it as a day job. However, if you want to just contribute, which I believe we all are doing at some level by just trying to leverage our experience and to anybody who would listen, you can simply talk about your experiences. You can actually take coursework. You can actually use your subject matter expertise to enhance the level of people who are actually doing that job as part of their day jobs, right? So that is how I believe I would create this distinction.
Aditya, my take on it here is if I'm looking at pro bono opportunities, you have sports NGOs, you have NGOs who may be working on other aspects. So, like again, sports as a means and sports as an end. So those who are working on other things in your region, in your locality, you can actually go and help them out, saying that see, you can use sports to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve. I can help you strategize. Let me spend the weekend, like talking about pro bono work. If you have technical knowledge, you can always take up a local school where you can go and coach and help out the kids. So maybe pro bono opportunities or part-time opportunities would lean more towards your presence on field.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Questions?
Guys, yeah, if there are any other questions, we thought it's almost upon
Yeah, I think
2:00.
Sagar had something which he asked the last time we were in chat. Sagar, I can't see that question anymore. So if you had a question, you can go ahead and ask.
Sure.
Yeah, I think Dr. Sanjana had answered it in partially. But my question, or in fact, informal suggestion was, along with these initiatives for sports and fitness, right? At least on the grassroots level, if we as a country could focus a little more towards nutrition, you know, that would really help uh, a lot of people in every aspects of life. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Got it. I don't think anyone here disagrees.
Sagar, when the larger problem is hunger, then somehow nutrition takes a
Backseat.
back seat. But the point is well taken, and
Yeah.
it remains a problem to be solved for us as a country. But that's what you just that some issues are heavier and more important to be tackled immediately.
Correct.
Does not mean that funds are not being spent on nutrition. So when state governments, when they run sports hostels, they focus on nutrition. They ensure that they have 3-4 proper meals a day, so that the kids who are studying and also getting proper coaching get proper nutrition as well. So
I'm glad, Appu, that at least the sports colleges are focusing, because our engineering colleges definitely didn't focus. So,
yeah,
I mean,
I'm
see,
kidding.
I
It's just
understand.
on the lighter note.
these are basically initiatives, Sagar, that are put together by the government with public money and with the clear mandate that you have to create sports persons. So hence it's imperative that they put together everything in a holistic manner, which includes having the right nutrition needs. But I would say, based off of my knowledge, nutrition becomes only important in our sporting ecosystem after a certain point, and rightly so. I
And
mean,
maybe,
there's only so many problems
but
you can solve with the resources we
yeah,
have.
Yeah.
exactly. But yes, for those sports persons, when they start looking at nutrition, maybe it could be a tad too late. Yeah,
Yeah.
but again, okay.
Thanks. It
So
was great having you, Apachu, to this discussion. I mean, usually we do this in the bedroom of our or in the living room of our houses, but yeah, today to do it in front of our other partners in crime and with a larger audience, it was fun doing it. And hopefully, people who listen to us will walk away with some incremental understanding of the grassroots ecosystem. So thank you, Apachu, for giving me your time and taking mine.
yeah, yes, Sumit. I
And
think it
genuinely
was
thanks, guys, for having this session. This was good to listen to, honestly.
thank you
Thank you,
so much,
Saga,
Sagar.
for
Thank you.
staying to
Appreciate
the
you
last.
taking the time to join us, and thank you to everyone who joined in. It was just a pleasure sharing whatever we have learned. I genuinely hope that it benefits whoever listens to this and helps them make the right decisions in their professional careers. Thank you so much, Sumit. Thank you for
My pleasure.